Job well done to the Knicks and their fan base. It is orange and blue skies for the next 12 months until we crown another NBA champion. Shout out to those guys. Yes, yes, I know in my previous video, I gave the Knicks absolutely no shot to win this NBA Finals, no matter who was coming out of the West. That ended up being the San Antonio Spurs. So I'll give you a sec. Talk your shit. I know that you've been waiting over 50 plus years to have this, so I'll give you a sec. Go ahead, get it out the way. I already know. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was wrong. All right, that's enough, damn it. Let's get to the facts. First things first, this is another great episode of Oh Brother the Podcast. I'm, of course, your host, Coop, man. Orange and blue skies reign again for the Knicks fans in the NBA as they took down the San Antonio Spurs in the NBA Finals, and we crowned them champions this past Saturday, man. And a historic run for the Knicks as well, losing only 3 games that they played on the course of running to a NBA Finals championship. Pretty damn good run. When you considering they only lost 1 game in the, I'm sorry, 2 games in the first round against the Atlanta Hawks and kind of gave them a scare, and didn't lose another game till game 3 of the NBA Finals, man. I mean, complete domination from pretty much start to finish for their historical run because they put belt to ass to everybody in front of them, including up to the Spurs in the NBA Finals. Now, their point differential was one of the highest among championship teams. They came back from a double-digit lead in each of the wins against the San Antonio Spurs. I couldn't believe that. The Spurs would always, it seemed like they would come out, start out hot. At some point, they did the same thing against the Thunder in a few games. They know how to start games well, but they just can't seem to finish. And I'm gonna get to that more in a second. I do want to harp more on these Knicks, man. I just think that this is a complete team from top to bottom. Not only do they have the camaraderie from the guys from Villanova, Karl Anthony Towns comes in and fits in well with these guys. OG Anunoby was a solid wing scorer and defender that they needed as well to help complete this team, and the bench guys were proficient in their roles for the little bit of minutes that they were getting. Mitchell Robinson was good. He came through with some clutch rebounds here down the stretch in this last game, especially with that one off the free throw line near the end of game 5. He held it down because the last 2 games, Karl Anthony Towns was in foul trouble. You had guys like Landry Shamet who couldn't miss, man. I mean, every time the Knicks penetrated and the ball got rotated out along the perimeter and it ended up Shaman's heads, you know he was shooting it and you knew it was going in. I mean, he was money, especially from the corner. Even Clarkson, a guy who I didn't even think was going to log minutes in this NBA Finals, came in and had like a 10, 12-point game in, I think, game 4 or 5. Excellent play off the bench, and that leads me to my next point is where Mike Brown seemed to be the difference maker as head coach. Granted, we were kind of harping on James Dolan and the general manager here for giving Tom Thibodeau the boot after they had just come off a Eastern Conference Finals appearance. I wasn't mad at the decision. I didn't hate it because it feels like you have gotten all that you have gotten out of this team with the strategies under Tom Thibodeau. Then you bring in an experienced head coach. I'm glad they didn't go get a new head coach. They bring in an experienced head coach in Mike Brown, who's also been to the finals multiple times, and not only as an assistant, but also as a head coach in Cleveland. Just didn't quite get over the hump as a head coach. Won multiple championships as an assistant alongside Steve Kerr and the Warriors. So you bring in an experienced head coach, a different strategy, a different mindset, more of a player-minded coach, along with the personnel that that many felt was already championship worthy, especially with a depleted East. Coming into the season, we knew that the Knicks should finish on top of the East, considering Damian Lillard got hurt towards Achilles, so Milwaukee was probably out of the question. Then Giannis got hurt. He missed half the season for the most part. So the Bucks are out of it. Jason Tatum and the Celtics, we we knew he wasn't going to play most of the year. And somehow, well, not somehow, but the prowess of Jaylen Brown and the exceptional talent around him and the Boston Celtics squad, they still ended up being second in the East. But they ended up flailing to a 76ers team who could have given the Knicks go if they were ultimately healthy in their own right, which I kind of thought that they would have been meeting the Knicks in the Eastern Conference Finals, but that didn't happen because come playoff time, Embiid is never right. Neither is this team. And then also you had an injury-riddled Pacers team who seemed to be tanking the entire year because they knew they were out without their superstar, Tyrese Halliburton. And then you have the emerging Detroit Pistons who just don't have a deep enough bench to get it done and make a complete finals run and are too heavily reliant on their superstar and first-team All-NBA player, Cade Cunningham. And that leaves us with the New York Knicks, with a dominant run through the Eastern Conference, sweeping two teams on the way to the finals. Then you open up the finals and win 2 games on the road in San Antonio, Texas. Great fan base, rowdy crowd, and you pull off what seemed to be the improbable. And you have all the momentum on your side going home. And then we come to game 3. We all know who was the special guest at game 3, which may or may not have thrown off the vibes with the extra security and all the hoopla behind it and the political ramifications. Still a close game in game 3. Knicks ultimately lose. Momentum swings back to San Antonio. And then you come game 4, the Knicks are down 29 points. 29, and come back in the largest finals comeback history and defeat them in game 4. And once that happened, we already knew 3-1, not too many teams come back. Only one team has ever come back, really. And we know who that is, from a 3-1 deficit. So virtually over, but you were thinking maybe Spurs take this game Saturday night, game 5, get some momentum back on their side. They probably lose in 6 at home. But the Knicks weren't trying to wait till they got home to win this championship because they knew if you gave the Spurs any type of hope that they could have, were talented enough to take them down. And they ultimately came back from another 12-point deficit in the fourth quarter to come back and beat the Spurs team and go on to finalizing their championship run. Absolutely incredible when it comes to the New York Knicks. And what led to some of their success was not only the play of their finals MVP, Jalen Brunson, who averaged 32 points on the way to his finals MVP and was super clutch down the stretch of all of these games. Let me not dismiss that. But the play in the first 3 games, I believe, of Karl-Anthony Towns was huge for them. Mike Brown deciding to, not only in the Eastern Conference Finals, but in the finals here, to let him lead the offense as somewhat of a point forward at the free throw line in a Jokic-type system led to some diversity in their offense and took some pressure off of Jalen Brunson for having to be the primary scorer throughout the entirety of the game. Although he was your guy down the stretch, Towns kind of led the way, opened up the floor for some more rotations, some passes that led to some easy 3-point shots for guys like Shamet and Mikal Bridges and Josh Hart at times. And then when we was not getting double teamed, he was allowed to get his move and score at his will. And he also stayed out of foul trouble, which was the huge key to me, in my opinion, as to why that they were so successful in those first 3 games. Now we saw in the last 2 games where Karl-Anthony Towns experienced some foul trouble, and that led to some of the difficulties for the Knicks and why they got down 29 points in game 4 and had trouble coming back, but they ultimately did in game 5. Him getting into foul trouble is kind of the game flow of what I thought the entire series would have been. But the maturity and discipline ultimately kicked in for Karl-Anthony Towns in the greatest way and at the perfect time. Him doing that, I think, was the key ability to the Knicks pulling off this championship run. Granted, he had an exorbitant amount of talent around him, along with Brunson, Bridges, and all the other starters. Anunoby with the improbable tip-in. That's already been muralized in New York City as they've been going crazy. Spectacular plays in every game came down to the final few possessions, it felt like, and it was exciting basketball to watch. And it was two different teams in the finals for the most part that we haven't been used to seeing in previous years. Since Adam Silver has come to be the commissioner in this NBA, we've had 8 different finals champions. So the run of dynasties that we had in the previous era may see him come to the close with the new rules and payment tiers and luxury taxes that teams will have to pay in order to avoid some of these dynasties seems to be coming to fruition for Adam Silver in his NBA. Do I like it or not? Yet to be determined. Because I'm ultimately been on the side that dynasties have been good for the NBA and helped build it because you either love them or hate them, but yet you still watch. But for Knicks fans, this ends a 52, 53-year drought of winningless basketball. A generation plus of fans now get to witness greatness for their city and probably the second most popularized city in America. So shout out to the Knicks, man. Just a side note that I wanted to point out. I think the Knicks for sure won the OG Anunoby trade, and he's worth every penny of that $200 million that they're paying him. Up until the Game 5 performance of Jalen Brunson, it was hand in hand him or Brunson that could have won Finals MVP. But since Brunson had an historic closeout game on the road, scoring 45 points, nearly half the team's points, he was voted unanimously Finals MVP, and deservingly so. Now, where does that leave the Knicks moving forward? Who knows? They're more than likely they're going to be bringing back the same squad, but we're going to have a somewhat reloaded East. Pistons will be coming back with revenge. They know how to get it done, are very scrappy, and played extremely hard throughout the season and maybe ran out of steam a little bit in the playoffs. Cleveland's bringing back their heavily vasted payroll and starting five as well. We don't know if the 76ers will be doing the same, but I assume they will be doing so. I don't see them trading Embiid anytime soon because his contract and his health status is the biggest question. You're also paying Paul George a lot of money and Maxey. So they're going to have to find some ways to reorganize that roster and get some help. The Celtics will be back. They'll be bringing back their big three as well with a full, healthy season of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. But will they look to move on from either one of those guys, considering that they're both making $300 million, and it would be hard to put a winning roster around those two guys without paying an absorbent amount of money and luxury tax. And then also, you have the Pacers, who fell out of the draft, even though they tanked hard this year because of how they traded their first-round pick. I can't really remember how that was structured at this very moment, but they'll be still competitive team once they get their point guard back. Do I think that they'll be running for another finals appearance? I don't think so. But the Knicks have a great shot to run it back and at least make it to the Eastern Conference Finals once again, and a shot at the NBA Finals, considering the health of everyone in the East, and if Giannis moves west or not. That is still up in the air as well. So the Knicks, as constructed, do have a good shot to repeat and have probably the best shot, in my opinion, to be repeat champions in the Adam Silver era. But for the Spurs, man, an amazing season, considering just 2 seasons ago, you were in the bottoms or the dumps of the NBA. I mean, this is a young but talented team that includes players and coaches. I'll get to the coaches in just a second, but the players are awesome, man. I mean, Wembanyama, we know, is an alien and a freak and a hard to stop in the paint and on the perimeter, and can be like Anthony Davis was in his prime, a free safety roaming the paint and be an ultimate defensive anchor with his height and length and reach, shutting down anything that comes into the paint in terms of guys penetrating to the basket, trying to get layups, dunks, and floaters. All of that's getting swatted. He doesn't have to play too close on a defender with the ball because he can recover easily, especially on shorter defenders, to block a shot. The guy is awesome and was voted unanimous Defensive Player of the Year this year, and deservingly so. We know how much of a freak he is. in terms of his basketball talent and size and ability. You have a young Dylan Harper that comes off the bench and is fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And I see why the Spurs took him so high in the draft. A talented young man, but that's just got a dog mentality as well. Nobody's going to stop him when he's going to get his head down to the rim. He's got strong shoulders and upper body, can lean in and take the hits and the contact to get to the rim, can shoot the ball at a decent clip from outside, and knows how to get his shot when the team lacked some offensive scoring at times. He kind of was the guy to break the scoring droughts. Then you got Stephon Castle, who is an amazing guard in this league. I don't think he's a proficient point guard because he just turned the ball over at such an enormous rate, especially in the Western Conference Finals where they were waiting on De'Aaron Fox to come back, and I'll get to him in a second. But also, you have Vassell, you have Champagny, two excellent wing players and shooters for the perimeter. You had guys coming off the bench who were some veterans, but not necessarily championship winning veterans. Cornette, you had, Keldon Johnson, who was your leading scorer through the dog days of the Spurs that people forget and try to throw Keldon Johnson aside, probably because he didn't play up to his ability in these finals. But people forget that he was 22-point scorer and the leading scorer for the Spurs when they were dog shit. I mean, and just to prove his worth now, that's why he kind of got the Sixth Man of the Year award this year, even though that it was lacking probably for six-man status this year. And it just kind of seemed like the de facto decision. But when you look at this Spurs team as a whole, they lack veteran leadership, veteran winning leadership. You have veterans on the squad, but you don't have veteran winners. I don't think it's a coincidence that once Chris Paul arrived in San Antonio, and along with Victor Wembanyama, that they were all of a sudden a playoff team. Chris Paul, although not the ultimate, he hasn't won a championship, but he's a winner. Wherever he goes, a playoff team emerges. He did it with New Orleans. Not only did he do it with New Orleans, he did it with the Clippers. He did it with OKC, and he did it with Phoenix. And he also did it with the Spurs, with the young, talented guys around him. So, how do we regroup here for the Spurs? You have to go get some veteran leadership that can show you how to close out these games, because clearly you have enough talent and ability to start off hot, but you got to have somebody there that knows you how to keep your composure and close out games down the stretch. Because there's no reason that you should be blowing multiple double-digit leads in the finals if you had an experienced veteran player on your roster, or multiple, that are winning, proven guys. And that's no disrespect to guys like Bismack Biyombo and Cornette and what's my man's name? Plumlee and all of those guys that are all on the end of the bench. There's no disrespect to them. But if I recall correctly, I don't think none of those guys have been proven winners. They've been bounced around the league, yet services are redeemable because they're veterans. But are they the right veterans to lead this team to a championship? I don't think so. And not only that, the coaching experience may have failed them at some point, which leads to my next point. Mitch Johnson, although a young, talented head coach up and coming in this league, was outcoached by Mike Brown, which was part of the problem of the Spurs blowing these leads down the stretch. Wembanyama played too many minutes at times to where it led to missed key free throws down the stretch of multiple games. And during the game 4, where they were up 29, he played 42 minutes and didn't sit, but 1 minute in the second half. You could have found more times and stretches throughout the course of that game, even though while you were blowing this lead, you come out at halftime and you got guys putting up 6, 7, 8 straight possessions of 3-point shots early in the shot clock and help the Knicks come back. Because really, once you get up a certain point, 29, 30 points in a game, you really could just hold the ball until about 8 seconds on the shot clock, and then run your offense even to get a quick pick and roll or a drive to the basket to swing around the horn or something to get a better, decent shot than you were just coming down with a step back Fox 3 or a pick and roll into a turnover. This is where the veteran leadership comes in and the better coaching, because you could have found some minutes here and there to get Victor Wembanyama a rest, get Fox out of the game, and get Harper back in there, who seems to end these scoring droughts that you have going on at times. And that kind of led to De'Aaron Fox becoming the most hated man in the NBA right now. The lack of quality basketball coming from this point guard that they needed severely for his ball handling and scoring prowess throughout this NBA Finals. But he could have played less because he wasn't playing well. And I don't think Mitch Johnson understood the assignment. Yes, you took some of the pressure off Vassell and Castle and Harper as, having the point guard duties and bringing the ball up the floor and organizing the offense, because Castle is really an off-ball guard. And he showed that, even though he's a really good player, but he showed that with his inconsistencies and his turnovers in the Western Conference Final. But the decision-making and the play of De'Aaron Fox at times was so putrid. It seemed unexcusable. And it's things like that where you don't go away from him and try to trust somebody else who's playing even better off the bench is some of the reasons why I think Mitch Johnson was severely outcoached. For example, I believe it was Game 4 as well. Mike Brown has McBride come off the bench on occasions, and at two different instances where he comes into the game and immediately puts up a bad three, once in the first half and once in the second half, and was immediately subbed out by Mike Brown because he felt that this guy was going to just have some type of like Kobe or Jordan effect and just start putting up bad shots in a close game that where every possession matters. And I got a guy coming off the bench thinking he's Kobe, putting up horrible threes, and then I immediately sub him out for a guy in Shamit, who in a controlled environment is a dead-eye shooter, and proven so is right when he got in the game, and trusted in a guy like Jordan Clarkson, who rarely passed the ball, but did what he was supposed to do once he got playing time in this finals. Again, a guy who I didn't think was going to get much playing time coming into it. But those little tiny decisions in between the enormity of coaching can be the difference sometimes in wins and losses, especially if you have a guy that's your starter that's not playing well and not playing efficiently, and you got a guy on the bench that's going crazy. I didn't understand it at times. I really did. All of my notes done here. But guys, it was an amazing finals. Like I said, every game was fantastic. It came down to the last few possessions. Last 5 minutes was excellent in just about every game. And the Spurs were really right there in most of these games. Like, even when they came back from 29, they only lost by one. They should have won that game. They only lost by a few points in game 1 and 2. Game 1, and then in game 2 they lost by like 4, I think. So like they were right there consistently with this team, and they're talented enough to take them out. Really, the game flows just didn't go like how most of us thought it was going to go, including myself. Again, it happened. But ladies and gentlemen, the Knicks have ended their drought. I'm happy to see a new champion, and I'm happy to see a new fan base get their shine and get to celebrate, because they haven't done so in over 50 years. And it seems like the Knicks, although, capable at times to win, have just come up short time and time again. But they didn't do so this time. So shout out to them. Another subject that I just wanted to touch on. Last night we had the Freedom 250 UFC event at the White House. Oh, brother. Man, mixed emotions about that. First, let me start with the good. So most of you know that I am in the lighting and sound and technical side of things now with my employment. So I think from that perspective, the way I saw how it was produced, how the setup was going, and as a genuine sports fan, I honestly thought it was kind of cool to have a sporting event at the White House. The way it was set up, the way the octagon was set up, the whole lighting rig and production aspect of it, the live band music from the military. You had the thousands of people at the eclipse watching on the monitors. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm not gonna lie. But for it to be what it was and who it was, the semantics of this event were just poor. And I'll get to that in a second. But I do want to just mention that, as a genuine sports fan, as I think about it, like if we'd have had like an NBA game on South Lawn of the White House, or a Major League Baseball game or something played in the area of any of the monuments, that would be the ultimate, like, coolest thing, like, that I think anybody in professional sports would want to do. Like, considering that we've had different stuff throughout the years, that different environments that sports teams have played. Considering a few years ago we had the Field of Dreams game in Iowa, we've had a college hoops on a Navy ship. We've had, baseball games played on a NASCAR track, and we have all these overseas NFL games now. These different environments and the build up and the hype to them are really cool to me. Like, the different type of setup and the way it's promoted and produced can be really cool. And the way they had it set up, to be honest, and the fighters were walking out of the Oval Office, and had their walkout themes played by the live band, and you know, I gotta say, bro, it was well produced, and if you're gonna do it, they did it right. You know what I'm saying? In terms of the productions, and that's all I'm gonna say in terms of good. You got to kind of build them up to town now, because the semantics of the situations was god awful. Oh, brother, I feel like the president of the United States, Donald Trump, was doing a much better job at being president, and instead of just enriching himself and his family with his office, the semantics of this situation wouldn't be as bad. Now, granted, he's friends with Dana White, who is CEO and owner of UFC Ultimate Fighting Championship, and that's why they decided to produce that on the White House South Lawn for his birthday. Now, if he was friends with NFL Commissioner Roger Goodell or Adam Silver, or Major League Baseball or something like that, would they have done the same? I don't think so. Maybe, we don't know, but because he's friends with Dana, who owns that, that's what ended up being there. UFC is probably the closest thing we have to human cockfighting in America. And to have that displayed on the White House, which is supposed to be the most dignified place in d- grace and dignity and peace, you got guys beating the hell out of each other for a check. And, it's displayed for the world to see on Paramount streaming platforms, which is also owned by a friend of Trump's, and other sponsorships who I'm sure paid money for advertisement for Dana and Donald to further enrich themselves. Now, if the semantics surrounding to the situation, if he was a much better president, and if gas wasn't through the roof, people could afford their groceries, and we didn't have a war in Iran, and things were going a lot smoother for the American people, it wouldn't have probably been so bad in terms of the heat that he would be taking, but the optics around it look terrible, because, like, all of those things that I just mentioned, you have people struggling with, and then you just have this White House filled with, like, degenerate racist fans who just, continue to mock not only democracy, but the office of presidency itself. And it just looks awful, not only to the American people, but to the rest of the world, as we host the World Cup here, and millions of people flock to America to watch their country play in the World Soccer Tournament. And to put that on display and call it UFC 250, granted, we haven't even celebrated the 250th anniversary. We haven't had July 4th yet. It's basically a big birthday bash for Donald Trump, and they're selling sponsorships, meme coins, gold coins with his face and Dana White's face on it to commemorate the event. And where are those profits going? We already know, to Donald Trump's pockets and his cronies. And you also have things like his son allegedly DMing DC, who's Daniel Cormier, one of the commentators, asking if any of the fights would be rigged so he could bet on it and make some more money for himself and his family, allegedly. Come on, DC, if you got the balls to post it on Twitter, why don't you have the balls to at least say, yeah, it happened. Yes, it was real. And then you just deny the fact and say you got hacked. Oh, brother, you can do way better than that, brother. The check for UFC can't be that good for your dignity. And for what you displayed, you can't say that you love the sport enough for that if you don't want to rule out something like this. Oh, brother, man, what have we come to as a country? Like I said, from the production side of it, they did it right. It looked awesome. It kind of I would have felt like, a dignified American too if I was really into, fighting as a competitor. But at the end of the day, man, it is what it is, bro. It's basically human cockfighting in a cage. You got guys beating the hell out of each other, one on one, for not that much money, because compared to other fighting organizations, Dana White is not paying his guys to a certain standard, because some of the other high-ranking fighters are going elsewhere, other promotions, to get paid their worth. And then I heard they're paying out the UFC bonuses that they normally do, the fight bonuses, the knockout bonuses. They're getting paid in a Trump meme coin, so that is virtually worthless. Might as well be probably an NFT or something. Worthless. So not only are you making money, you're shorting your fighters as well. But that's not nothing new for Dana White and the Ultimate Fighting Championship. That's all I got to say. And then you have the display of just that across the world, man. And when people vacation, they go overseas, we wonder why other countries look at us like this. That we're fat, stupid idiots and we don't know what we're doing and we're uneducated and we think the world revolves around us, because we do. Look how we display ourselves for the world. But anyways, that's the topic for another day. I don't want to get too political because this is a sports podcast. Granted, let me know what you guys think. Orange and blue skies for the foreseeable near future. Like, comment, subscribe, guys. I really appreciate it. This has been a great. Oh, brother.